the show begin. Next generation for the win. We're going all in. All together now, let's begin. Let the show begin.
Hi.
How does it feel to be in Singapore?
Wonderful, always wonderful. Singapore is the counterpose for Amsterdam in yoga poses.
In terms of weather?
Opposites, everything. It's where I find my balance, my happy place, and I come here a lot.
All right. So you are a chef. You were a chef before you became a tech product, right?
Barely,
so that's
barely.
a photo of Adrienne as a chef. So what's your favorite food in Singapore?
I honestly couldn't tell you, but I will tell you that I have a very, very big weakness for bak kwa.
Bak kwa. Okay, which is kind of a roasted pork.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I overindulge on it. And
It's our version of yamon.
Yeah, or
All
jerky.
right.
I've seen it referred to as jerky. I had bao with bak kwa in the middle last night.
All right. So we've talked about the recipe for bak kwa sandwich. What's the secret recipe, the ingredients that go into the cooking of a great product for customer love?
It starts with empathy, I think, and then moves with, you take empathy and you put a big layer of data over the top of it, so you start to understand, first you understand the customer intent, but not just the intent, but also the unintended consequences of whatever decision you make on their behalf. So for me, the recipe that I try to apply to everything that I do is really thinking about not just what you want to optimize, but also what you're wanting to protect for the customer or company, and then what you're willing to sub-optimize at any given moment to be able to bring those other two things into view. So not everything is a zero-sum game, obviously, but like recipes need to have balance in them. And that balance, either when you're trying to accomplish something for your customer or if you're trying to create something new for your company, balancing the well-being of your staff, for example, if that's something you're going to sub-optimize to bring something to life, you need to protect that and protect them only for a period of time. And then there's probably other metrics that you just want to keep an eye on, but you don't want to harm them. And then the things that you really want to bring to life for your customer or for your company. And to me, that's the recipe.
Okay, so empathy, data, optimization, balance, and then adding the sizzle to make sure that the right stuff.
Adding the sizzle, but making sure you always are aware of what your unintended consequences are as well.
So do you think that AI is the secret ingredient now that will solve for customer love, or do you think it will create more anxiety because you're getting a fire hose of customer intent right now?
Yeah, the fire hose of intent is very interesting. It's really what we do with it. I don't know that it's, I see it sometimes referred to as something secret that you sprinkle over the top of what you're already doing, but it actually fundamentally is going to change how product folks need to think about the work that they're doing. Because when you have intent coming in at the rate and the sort of the breadth of it, following the same path that we've taken on Rails for doing product development doesn't make sense any longer. Let me think of an example. So for example, right now we're working on trying to change how customers search on Booking. So, and it's no secret that over the last year or so, we're trying to bring in more semantic signals. So start to understand using natural language. Search is our ultimate goal, but natural language processing is being baked into our current way of doing things. Even something as simple as the form factor of the space that you give for people to tell you what they want will influence how much information you bring in. And then the more information you bring in, the more information you have to then draw conclusions. And we can use foundational models chained with our more narrow domain predictor models to take those things. And then the expected output, of course, is a search result, a curated list of things that are relevant to what you asked for. So if someone comes in and writes a paragraph and tells us their feelings, the emotions that they want to have, we need to do something with that to match that expectation. So it's really even comes down to, when developing products, like understanding that the UX that you create is going to influence heavily what kind of result you're able to produce.
All right, so a much more empathetic, actually, that's empathy, isn't it? You know, search that actually delivers to that person's
Right.
intent. Okay, so there are two, I mean, I think OTAs faces a multitude of challenges right now, you know. But I think there are two key problems that I see that an OTA faces, which is one is frequency, right? You know, because travel is not a frequent,
Right.
and commoditization, right? Everybody's starting to look the same and all that.
Yeah.
How do you think AI will solve these two problems for an OTA like booking? Frequency and commoditization.
Frequency was always the thing that we were chasing, in the sense that if you have a market that can take one vacation a year, and the anxiety, the concern about how well that's going to go is so high, and then you have other markets that can do weeks of vacation. Even managing that, we probably are only capturing the share of wallet is on aggregate a fairly low frequency in terms of the last mile of shopping. So all of the research that takes place months ahead of time was potentially happening off our platforms, and we were getting that last mile of decision making, which is great, except that our models start to overfit for that experience. So what we're trying to do now to increase frequency, but also to understand customer intent, is to give more discovery opportunities. And that's really the first use case that everybody said, like ChatGPT, oh my God, I can generate an itinerary in 5 minutes that will let me take a multi-city tour of Europe, and I don't get any of the FOMO I would have gotten if I had not done that research, right? But I think also an interesting thing I've been realizing is that we don't necessarily need that frequency, because that single individual's multiple data points, the same way that you would get with, say, like an Amazon shopper. I think everybody in the entire United States is spending 50 cents a day on Amazon. I don't know, I made that up, but it's a huge number. It was just mind-boggling when I heard it. And we don't have that, but I don't know that we necessarily need it anymore, because we have by taking foundational models that are trained off of data, like such broad data, and then pairing that with our models that understand that last mile, we can create new data sets that help us understand sort of on aggregate, the customer need for traveling. And that opens a lot of doors. It completely changes how we think about what we give to customers.
So really trying to keep the customer within the ecosystem as much as possible, right?
Right.
And so at yesterday's boot camp, I think there were some conversations about, you know, people, I mean, what Steve Jobs said, right? People don't know what they want until you show it to them, and so that's why he never relies on market research. So do you think that there is something you think I want in my booking app that I don't even know about? And so let me give you a couple of examples. So yesterday, we asked some of the panelists, like, what's the one skill that they want to download instantly if they could, right? One was languages, to be able to communicate real time in different languages. So do you think like within your app to bury something like this, you know, for your customer would add to frequency? Or is it a waste of time?
I think that there are things that that are travel adjacent. We could introduce all kinds of travel adjacent solutions, painkillers, vitamins, whatever you want to call them. But I need to bear in mind that probably the use cases for those extend beyond travel, and maybe they're going to become the next commodity that is solved. So, for example, having an LLM on your phone that it can do real-time translation, that understands the context of what you're talking about. Because even, for example, when we were doing translations in-house for booking, we did that because we found that off-the-shelf models were not necessarily interpreting the same words in a travel context, right? But that context piece that we would have in the past found was necessary to do in-house is no longer really necessary because the models are getting so advanced outside. So I think a translation, real-time translation capability is going to be very quickly baked into our day-to-day lives already with, you put your AirPod in and then you can do real time.
So what else could you build into your app that I don't even know that I want?
Yeah, I'm trying, at risk of brainstorming in real time in front of a room full of people. If I knew, I couldn't tell you. Yes, I'm sure there's something amazing. And what we'll do is we'll probably, every time we put something new out into the world that we think is, okay, we're just going to test this out and see what happens, we get back a ton of information about, okay, that is about directionally okay, but it's really not going to move the needle. What's the next big thing? And so I think when we find the move the needle thing, you'll see it.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about how you're putting together the connected trip, right? And yesterday at the think tank too, I think the idea of AI being the glue was raised. And Booking's holding CEO Glenn has said that the latest advances in AI will be instrumental in making the connected trip a reality, right? So is that for real? And how close are you to using AI as the glue to stitch it all together?
So, I mean, quite literally, if we were completely fine with tons of risk and potentially breaking the experience of a significant double-digit number of customers, we would be able to launch a ton of capabilities right now. I'm finding that with building AI-driven or AI-forward products, we're constantly riding this edge of risk, and protecting customers takes the number one priority seat in how we roll things out. So that's why we might appear to be moving slowly in what we launch to customers, but it's mostly because we're still trying to make sure that we don't introduce any kind of chaos into a situation that's already stressful and chaotic. So, but indeed, the longer-term view is and it's even changed in the last 2 years since we've been doing this pretty dramatically. When we rolled out the AI trip planner, for example, it was done in a space that was rather low risk, because you can allow for maybe mistakes in discovery when you're doing destination recommendations. As you move closer to the place where people are giving us the trust and the money and protecting, starting a contract, protecting their booking, and then even into the customer service space, that's a very high-risk space, and we do not want to make mistakes there. So I'd say that, that's what I mean by we have that, we could be rolling out much faster, but we're protecting our customers.
Right. So do you think that that's a disadvantage in today's world, because technology has accelerated, affordable? If we can play out that slide where, if you look at the size of Booking now, it's a giant, as you say, you have to protect the business, then your tech stack is a bit legacy, right?
A bit.
So how do you compete with the newer players that are coming now with nimble stacks and microservices? How do you balance that?
That is such a wonderful question. We have to be, so I've been on the team of folks that are trying to modernize our tech stack for years and years now. And one of the challenges, it's always this balancing act between doing what is the right thing for the stack to unlock the future, and doing what is right to keep customers on the right path today. So our sheer size means that making any sharp or big turns is a slow process. We are essentially a cruise ship that needs to be careful in how it turns, because things can go wrong. I'd say compared to the smaller players who are on more nimble tech stacks, I think that there are advantages to that, of course. If I were starting over from zero, I know that I would apply a lot of things that I would not have even thought of 8 years ago when I was with Booking. It was sort of go fast. I think perhaps the origin story of Booking was very much in the sense of, as long as there is growth, you keep powering through, and then we'll fix it later. I think that the advantage of that is that you can really capture the moment and capture the market. But now, as a mature company, we need to have it built into our cadence to be constantly reflecting on what we have created and making sure that it can continue to scale. I can give an example of something. Like years ago, I built something called the Booking Assistant, which was essentially a bot that was an expert system that could do customer service and help people do self-service through conversational UI. And we used our own in-house built natural language models. And it was the first toe in the water. And I was looking back on the documents for it. It was literally over 5 years ago. If we had had LLMs, we could have built that thing in a scalable way, and it would still be alive.
Yeah.
But because we built it just to see if it would work, we had to turn it off because we couldn't scale it. And so I think that's the big difference.
It was a bit too early.
Yeah.
Then. You tested it a bit too early.
Yeah. So like the smaller, more agile folks, they just need to be prepared. The luxury problem of needing to scale is something you have to prepare for.
So do you think that dilemma, though, is amplified when you talk about a region like Asia Pacific, right, where a lot of the innovation is happening so fast. There's a lot of leapfrogging going on here with, like we were the first mobile and payments and all that. And we see innovations coming from the local players here, right?
Yeah.
Trip, Traveloka and all that. When you look at these brands, have you seen any interesting innovations that's coming from APAC and you go, are we fast enough from Amsterdam to figure out what's happening here?
I mean, I think that the challenge we have being based in Amsterdam is that our primary market in the European Union is not fully settled in terms of regulation yet. So I envy Trip and other smaller players, or not, I mean, Trip is not a small player by any stretch, but I envy the Asian players because it seems like there's simply a different relationship with data than we have, and that means that they're able to move forward more quickly than we can. On the bright side, I'm informed that once we solve this European Union challenge, we will be able to then consider that to be the absolute high water mark of challenge when it comes to risk mitigation, and then we can move really quickly from there.
Okay, so if you can deal with the EU challenge, you can deal with the rest of the world when it comes.
Yeah, exactly. You need a couple hundred lawyers, and you'll be fine.
All right, so I think we also talked a lot about gender balance yesterday as well, whether it's women founders, but women in tech in particular, right? And what do you do actively? Is it something that you do actively to bring in more women into travel tech, product, and design?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, Booking has always been a champion of gender diversity and also just global diversity in general. I'm really pleased to say that over the last, I'm in my 15th year at Booking, and the dramatic change I've seen by literally all you need to do as a company, as a startup, is to codify the standards by which you want to make sure that you protect people to be themselves and bring their whole selves to work, and at the same time also make sure that when you're looking for the pipeline of people to interview and hire, that you make sure that you make that as neutral as possible in terms of your profile that you're looking for, because that brings more diversity. And of course, bringing diversity in really can dramatically change the quality of the product that you're delivering. Because again, I think I spoke a minute ago about the overfit. The idea that if you can almost introduce bias into your product by overfitting to a certain profile or data profile. And so I think companies can also overfit a little bit to whatever data profile that they think is required for their makers. Yeah. And I'm really pleased to say that, I mean, I was just looking at the folks that were working on my team on the AI products, and it skews 50%, if not more, heavily toward women. Most of my meetings are at least half women, if not 3/4.
Fantastic. Okay, one final question, rapid fire, quick answer. What's the one thing your future self 10 years from now would tell you to start doing today, Adrienne?
Oh, you said rapid fire.
Yes, rapid, like a walk, Pshoo.
I think the thing I have to constantly remind myself is that when something seems absolutely unsolvable right now, if I just wait a little bit, and these days it could be a couple weeks, some technology, some model will change everything. Okay. And I think that's really it. Things are moving at such an enormously breakneck pace. The processing power that we have access to, things are constantly getting better and improving. And I think the other thing I learned, that I would remind myself that I learned very recently, I'm reading this book called The Singularity is Nearer by Ray Kurzweil. He has a whole chapter dedicated to the fact that things are incrementally getting better on aggregate, and we are evolutionarily predisposed to looking for danger and negativity, the rustle in the bushes that means danger, but on the whole, things are actually improving. And so I have to remind myself of that.
All right. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Adrienne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
And right, they're ready